So here we go, the beginning and the primer on productivity. Productive freedom has been started with that goal and intent of making your life productive. At the key core of what we're talking about here is goals, setting intent and direction as to what you want to do so that you can ultimately live the best life that only you can achieve. So let's get into it. You probably heard a lot about time management, and everybody has an idea as to what it is, what you should be doing, what to be looking for. But in essence, I've been able to break it down into 3 steps that can take you, depending on where you're at, to the end destination, which is what you're looking for. Step 1 is finding out where you're going. This is a phase where we get into talking about visions, talking about goal setting, talking about direction. It's taking what's inside of your head and breaking it down into something useful. Step 2, evaluate what you're currently doing at the moment. Without having a clear idea of where you're at, you're never going to have direction as to what you should do or where you should be heading. And in step 3, making sure you do the things that you need to every day so that you can live the best life possible. So what is that? Step 1, this is where, like I was saying in the book, I get more in depth of it, but it's how to set goals. One of the key areas or methods that we use is what I call the 3 areas to life clarity exercise. When you're able to identify your work, home, and social atmospheres and put these down in a place and start thinking of your life in terms of outcomes instead of just having random to-do things that really never help, as you know, you all of a sudden start to be able to set and chart motion and direction. And that is one of the key things that we would like to do. As far as what you're doing at the moment, there's techniques like the Pomodoro technique, which is this idea of working on 25 minutes at a time. We also talk about time blocking, which is important. Thinking on paper, such things like getting your ideas down, getting them presented. And then in the third step that I was talking about, there's techniques that can help you. Things like bookending your days, starting with intention, journaling, setting to-do lists that are prioritized, on target, and on point. And all of these can definitely help you out. Okay, so now what we're going to do is break each of these 3 and break it down into more chunkable pieces that you can process. So, like I was saying, in the first step, it's about getting your reasons right. Dare to explore, dream, discover. Give yourself that liberty, that freedom to be and achieve and see what your life could really be. Okay, so this first step, find out where you are going. What are you doing at the moment that wants you to be more productive? You see, oftentimes what happens is we don't have a clear destination in mind. And because of this, we flail around and we're looking to plan, to organize, to do something, right? We want to increase our effectiveness and manage our time and do the most with this. But it's because we've never set clear intentions. So, like I was saying earlier, the simplest technique that I want to present to you is the 3 areas to life clarity exercise. Think about your life in 3 big areas: at home, at work, and at social. These 3 areas are related and connected in many ways. But if you take care of all of them, you're going to have the best life you can. The one that makes your home and social life possible is at work. So that's the reason why many of you who work full time and have many responsibilities are looking at ways of managing your time. But work, at the key point of it, is something of high importance. So one of the questions you might ask yourself is, so what about goals? What's the big point about goals? Well, you know, an interesting thing happens when you have clearly defined goals. You're no longer bored. You all of a sudden have that energy to wake up every day with enthusiasm and excitement. Wouldn't you like to have that? Not only that, but it seems like everything in your life starts to fall into place and you start obtaining and achieving the things that you only dreamed about at one point. when you think about goals and your creation of them, goals have to be smart. There are lousy goals and there are smart goals. Lousy goals are something like, I just want to make enough money to pay the lousy bills. Well, that's lousy. Don't be that type of person who sets those goals. Set smart goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. If you have these specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed goals, you'll find that you're able to do more with them and set intentions and see these accomplished. So something that I'd like to present to you is a tip. Write your goal, your top goal, on a 3x5 card and carry it on with you at all times. I can get more in depth, and I do at the blog, but I just want to give and present this method to you so you know what it is that you could be doing. The next step that I encourage you to do is create a bucket list of all the things you want to do, your motivation, your desires, everything that you want to get into place in order to have that life that you need and the life that you want. You know, oftentimes we don't do a lot of the things we know we could be doing. And you know what? It's because we never took the time to identify and give ourselves the reasons that we needed. You know, at Productive Freedom, I've created a little planner that actually helps with this idea of getting out of your head everything into a bucket list format. Things you want to become, things you want to have, who you want to help, who you want to meet, where are you going to travel, and where will you take your family to create experiences that allow you to enjoy, to achieve. This little guide here ends from all these things you write down into a method where you could write your top 10 goals. At first, start off like the cloud, right? Start off up in the 30,000 foot view. But you'll notice that the more you work through these exercises, the more specific your goals become and the more useful they are. All right, good. So that's the introduction, the first section. Again, in the book, I get more into depth into that. But does it stop there? Not at all. Now we get into the productivity techniques. This is the how-to section, the one that many of us instantly want to know about and just get to it. Show me what I need and give it to me now, right? So what can you do here? You can start thinking about a to-do list that you're actually going to use. How do you use to-do lists? You know, it's not enough to just have a list of things to do, but it's important to think about the outcome of why you're doing what it is you're doing. So in the book, I get more into depth as to how to create that, what a specific outcome with reasons and effective to-do list looks like. At the same time, setting time blocks in the form of a calendar where you're able to manage your events, get your life on track, and start seeing what needs to happen. That's another area that's key to what you're going to do. You know, one of the methods I talk about is what I call the 1% daily planning technique. Did you know that there's 86,400 seconds in a day? That's a 24-hour day. But if you were to take all those seconds and take 1% of that, you end up with about 15 minutes or so. Here's another cool fact. You know that for every minute of planning, you save 10 minutes in execution? So when we think about not having enough time, oftentimes this happens because we've never taken the time to plan. So we're rushing and frantically going over, and you see yourself starting the same task over and over and over again. And this happened because we didn't set the time to do it right from the beginning. So when you learn to plan and you learn to be very deliberate as to the work you're doing, you're able to step forward and make progress. Small, big, all sorts of steps that are concrete and in the right direction. So, productivity techniques that I get in depth, you have the Pomodoro technique. Basically, the idea here is that you focus on one task and you allocate 25 minutes of uninterrupted time to doing it. Of course, you can grow into 30, 40, 50, but at first, 25 minutes of complete focus onto one thing. Now, if for any reason you're interrupted during that time span that you're working on this, then what you're supposed to do is cancel it and restart again. The next method is the Getting Things Done presented by David Allen. The whole idea here is about, again, setting context and prioritizing your tasks into 6 different categories. The things you can do now, the things you're going to do next, the things you're going to do soon, the things you'll be doing someday, things you'll be doing later, and then the things you are waiting for. So these are the key areas that are talked about here. The ABCDE method is about taking a list and establishing columns where A refers to the absolute most essential things that you need. In fact, in the planner, I have the priority sorter where I talk about that. A is the most important tasks. B are tasks with mild consequences, nice to do's, but the consequences might not be there. C is something nice to do, like maybe calling a friend or things like that. D is the things you can delegate, and E is the things you eliminate altogether. Of course, I get into depth and to when to use what, but that's kind of giving you the high-level overview. Kanban boards, methodologies, this ties in well with like tools like Trello or maybe Asana if you use that. But the whole idea here is kind of an agile methodology where you're constantly refining and, again, going back to the smallest things you can do, but then outsource those that you don't need to do. The hybrid approaches that I present in the book is taking everything that I've mentioned above, a little bit bits and pieces, and combining it into a system that I've created that I found to work really well for me. Okay, and then in section 3, this is more of like a mindset, kind of a recap of what we do. You know, one of the most successful of skills you can have in order to be truly successful is self-discipline. A lot of tips, techniques, and hacks and everything you want to think about will be useless if you don't apply them and actually see them through. So in order for you to live the best life, you need to be able to integrate it into your everyday existence and make it so essential that you never think about it. The best habits are the ones that will allow you to be the best you. So a few ideas that I talk about, like how you start and how you end your day. I call it the bookend technique. Setting your intentions, setting your outcomes, and thinking about the best work you can do. Those are what's going to lead you into the results that you're looking for. A key factor that can help you be more productive is journaling. Keeping, again, a good idea of where you're at, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, because this in turn is what will motivate you. Getting up earlier. Just by getting up 1 hour a day, you'll be gaining 40 hours at least more than a person who doesn't get up early. Because if you do the math, think about it. 7 days, let's do the math together. When you have 1 hour a day that you can buy, let's say by waking up an hour, multiply that in a week, 7 hours, multiply that by 4, that's 28 hours a month, and you multiply that by 12, that's 336 hours extra every year. Divided by 40, think about this, you get about 8.4 extra 40-hour work weeks just by waking up a day. Can you imagine what you could be doing with 8.5 extra weeks of your time? And that all begins by just getting up earlier. Again, so many ideas come to us, and as we constantly pursue them, we're able to write them down. So I present the writing 5 ideas down technique, which is extremely useful. Because again, doing a simple math exercise. Imagine this, 5 hours a week, 5 ideas per day, multiplied by 7, multiplied by 4, 140 extra ideas a month. You multiply that by 12, that's over 1,680 extra ideas that you can be creating every year. Any one of these ideas can change your life. It's just a matter of revolutionizing it and implementing them. So these practices are some that you may have heard of, some of them you may not have, but I just bring them all together in a way that makes sense, that get presented to you, and ultimately help you do more with it. So thank you very much, and that concludes the overview and the beginning of what's to come very soon.